What is going on, everybody? So if you guys are watching this video, I'm kind of assuming that you guys are looking into upgrading the braking system on your IS300. I mean, I get it. I can't say I blame you. The stock braking system on it is pretty heavy, pretty ugly, and just all around kind of boring. Now, one of the most popular upgrades that a lot of people go with is the LS400 Caliper Conversion. Now, that gets you a lot better looks. It gets you aluminum front calipers and a 4-piston caliper. Also a bigger rotor. So all around, it's going to give you a lot better braking performance, and you can do it on a budget. But if you are considering it, this video is going to show you how to plan all the parts that you're going to need for the setup, where to get them, and the part of this that not a lot of people really talk about, and how much it actually costs to do it. I'm going to go through 2 different ways of doing it, pretty much the cheapest way possible, and the way that I did it, which I think is pretty clean, but it actually ends up costing a little bit more money. But either way, the cost is still going to come down to be lower than a normal big brake kit that you buy off the shelf. Now, with all that said, let's go back to the office and I'll show you guys exactly what it takes to do an LS400 front caliper swap. But before we do that, make sure to like and subscribe, because I might not have a job pretty soon. Thanks. All right, guys, time to get down to brass tacks. So the LS400 front brake conversion on the IS300 is going to comprise of a few different things. Pretty much the main things that you're going to need are the actual calipers, the rotors, the pads, and the kit to install them. Now this is going to get you a pretty basic setup, just exactly what you need to put it on the car. Now, you can pretty much go as cheap or as expensive as you want on any of these things. We could go pretty much from all the way like the cheapest stuff you could find at the parts store to pretty much race grade quality parts. So I'm gonna show you guys a few different options, and you guys can make the choice on what really suits your build best. So the calipers that you guys are gonna need on this are 1998 to 2000 LS400 front brake calipers. Pretty much the older LS400s came with a different braking system that doesn't look as good and isn't really as big of an upgrade on the IS's stock system. So we're just gonna stick to the 98 to 2000 range. Now there are a few different ways you can go with this. Either you can get a full set on eBay used, you can get a reman set from a parts store, or you could find some at a local junkyard. Now, I'm gonna tell you guys right now that the LS400s are actually still pretty easy to find at junkyards, so you might get the best deal if you do that. But if you're just wanting to throw them on and not have to worry about the condition of the calipers and whether or not they need to be rebuilt, then I would go with just the parts store remans, because that's pretty much gonna be the most plug and play option. All right, so I'm just using AutoZone as a basic place to get your parts just because it's pretty much everywhere. It's 71 bucks with a $30 course, so think about spending maybe 200 bucks on front calipers if you just want a normal plug and play setup. This is going to get you on the road. Now, this is not to say that you can't just use used brakes and just put them on. It's just these you know are going to be good and not going to be seized or anything like that. So if you're just trying to throw them on, this is probably one of the better options. Now, if you guys are trying to find something a little bit cheaper, I can show you a good place to go to. I personally like using carpart.com to try to find parts, because this pretty much goes to every single junkyard pretty much in the nation, and they'll pull up any sort of parts that you look for. And just go to calipers and see here the calipers range from like 25 to 50 bucks. I mean, really, if you're looking at getting into it the cheapest that you can probably go with the $25 ones. Just get one for each side, and you're at 50 bucks for a set of calipers. Now, these are going to be used off of junkyard cars, so I would recommend rebuilding them, but you don't necessarily have to. Now, the way that I actually did it is I ordered them on eBay, just because I wanted to get a full set just pretty easily, just shipped to me and not have to worry about going to junkyards and that kind of stuff for it. So I actually spent about $120 on 2 used calipers, and they came out pretty nice, but the only thing that kind of sucked is that they did have a couple divots on them that I ended up having to get fixed. I'll kind of go over what all that stuff costed later, because it did add a little bit to my build. But I mean, that's just because I was trying to be a little bit of a perfectionist and make sure that it looked absolutely perfect when it got on the car. So now we can check out what it costs to put pads and rotors on the car. We got a couple different options there too. So pretty much you could go with the cheapest pad available. Any parts store will have them for like 25, 30 bucks for a set. And the rotors, you're looking at probably like $50 to $70 each. It just kind of depends. That's going to get you a pretty basic rotor though. For a little bit more money, you can actually get a pretty nice set of rotors. Now the rotors and pads are also going to be from the LS400. Pretty much all of that stuff is going to be swapped to the LS400 just to make sure that all the parts fit. Now what I actually went with was a set of EBC pads. All right, so you guys can see right here, this is the brake pad set that I got. It's about $131. So that's going to be an upgraded pad that's going to get you better performance all around on the streets, but it's not quite a race pad, so it's not going to be quite as aggressive. Now, as far as rotors, I'm not going to lie to you guys, you could go with the $48 set, but I mean, come on. We're trying to make these cars look good, man. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm more of a slotted guy than a drilled and slotted guy. So I went with a set of StopTech slotted cryogenically treated rotors, and they look sweet. They look absolutely amazing. So they are directional. You will have to buy one of each. So $123 each does add a little bit to the price. So, I mean, you gotta pay to play. Swag ain't free. So they make the car look a lot better, and they add a little bit of braking performance, so that's always nice. The cryogenically treated rotors, I believe, are able to take a lot more heat than normal ones. So I'll be able to use them for longer stints of driving, maybe like on the track or anything like that. So that's nice. So now we come down to one of the most important parts of the swap, and it's the actual mount kit for it. Now, the one that I went with was the Figs engineering kit. It costs about $270 just through the Figs website, and honestly, it's perfect. It works exactly the way that it's supposed to, and I had no issues with it. So that's probably going to be what I'm going to recommend going with. So it comes with both the mounts and the roll center adjusters for it. Roll center adjusters pretty much just push the knuckle down a little bit to make sure that the tie rod doesn't come in contact with the caliper when it's on there. Because if you don't have them, a lot of people do have to like grind part of the caliper off of it, and that just seemed a little sketchy. I didn't really want to get into anything like that. So I got the Figs kit that came with everything to do it. So one thing that you will have to keep in mind with this kit though is that since you are putting roll center adjusters on the car, it's actually going to push the knuckle up approximately, let's say like 3/4 of an inch. And that is actually going to lower the front of your vehicle a good amount. It actually does kind of make the car look a lot meaner just with that little 3/4 of an inch drop, because it actually makes the wheel gap somewhere kind of tolerable. But with stock suspension, you are going to rub a little baby bit in certain situations, so you got to make sure you think about that. Now, like I was saying, there will be an additional cost depending on what wheels you're actually running. If you're running a set of aftermarket wheels that have enough space to be able to fit the LS400 calipers in them, then you really don't have to run spacers. I, however, at this point in time, I'm running the stock wheels, and they actually do not have enough space to be able to fit the calipers. So you're gonna have to run wheel spacers if you do want to run stock wheels. Now, you can get away with a 15mm spacer, but I ended up going with a 25mm spacer just to make sure that it was a little bit better fitment, and it actually looks pretty good. The wheel sits pretty flush to the fender, and I think I like how it looks. So when I start planning on what wheels to buy for my car, I think I'm gonna go off of pretty much the same fitment that it's got now, but maybe go a little wider and just something that looks better. So the wheel spacers that I got came from Amazon. They're pretty much the nicest ones that I could find. They're hub-centric, they have the studs in them, and they're 25mm. So you're gonna wanna look for the right spacers, the ones that have the right hub bore, which on the IS300 is a 60.1mm hub bore. So that is going to make sure that they're hub centric. Now your lug nuts are a 12x1.5 thread. So you want to make sure that that's the same so that you can still use your stock lugs, and the nuts that they provide with the spacer are going to fit on your stock lug studs. Other than that, you can pretty much choose whatever actual thickness you want. So pretty much from 15mm on up is going to be what you're going to need to make this work. So at this point, if you went with a used caliper from a junkyard, the cheapest rotors you can find, the cheapest pads you can find in the Figs kit, we're sitting at about $500, kind of depending on how much you actually end up paying for the calipers. So for a big brake kit, that's actually super cheap considering that the rest of the ones that you can find for this car range from like $2,000 to $4,000. So for a basic setup, 500 bucks, not bad. So as far as the way that I did it, I ended up adding a few things. I ended up adding stainless steel brake lines, the nicer rotors, the nicer pads. I actually ended up having my calipers powder coated, and to do that, I wanted to make sure that I took everything apart and rebuilt them. So as far as rebuild kits go, it's kind of hard to find. So Lexus does make rebuild kits for them. That's most of the seals in the brake caliper, but there is an issue with them. Pretty much they come with every single seal that you'll need except for the two little O-rings that go in between the caliper halves. Those were a bitch and a half to find, I'm not gonna lie. So I pretty much ended up finding one place to actually get them from, and that's rockauto.com. Now their kit is pretty much the only one that I found that actually comes with the two little O-rings. Just make sure that you look for the one that in the picture has the two little extra O-rings. So the kit itself costs about $6, and you're gonna need two of them, one for each caliper. Not really that huge of a price increase, but honestly kind of worth it if you are buying used calipers, and it doesn't really take a whole lot to rebuild them. So if you haven't watched my previous video, I'll link that right up there. That shows you pretty much the whole process of rebuilding them, and it's actually pretty simple. Now a few other things that I had to go through. I told you guys that the calipers that I got didn't actually come exactly perfect on eBay. They had a few blemishes on them, a few dents. So I actually had to take mine to a welding shop and have them welded up. Now, this is pretty much only because I don't have a TIG welder. If I had a TIG welder, I'd be able to do it myself, just put a couple tacks on it and just be out of the door pretty free. But I don't have one, so I had to take it to a welding shop and they charged me 50 bucks, which is pretty much their minimum fee, just to put a few tacks on them. And then I just ground them down, made sure they was smooth, and took it to powder coating. Now powder coating is kind of going to vary. Pretty much everybody that I checked around my area that does it was charging me about $50 to $60 per caliper. And I actually ended up going with the guy that charged me 60 bucks per caliper, but he powder coated the actual caliper and ceramic coated the bolts for it. So as you guys probably saw in the video, the calipers came back with the gold exterior and black bolts, which I think just absolutely looks amazing, because when a lot of people just paint the calipers, it paints the bolts too, and I think it looks kind of gross. It's not anything that anybody's ever gonna see, but like it bothers me. You know, like I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. So the brake lines you can stay with IS300 parts. So I went with the StopTech braided stainless. They're nice because they have a little plastic sheathing over the actual stainless part of it, so you won't rub through or anything like that if it hits knuckles or tie rods or anything like that. And that's pretty much it for my front brake conversion. So my whole setup ended up costing me about $1,000, which is, in the grand scheme of things, still pretty cheap compared to any other big brake kit that you can find for this car. So I'm pretty stoked about it. I think it looks amazing, and it honestly still feels pretty good. I was a little bit sketched out about what the pedal feel was going to be like switching for different calipers, just because I know sometimes if you change the actual size of the pistons on them, it'll kind of change the way that the pedal feels. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't get something that completely felt like trash. And I can tell you guys now, after driving it for a few months, that it really doesn't. It really doesn't change anything at all as far as brake feel. It still honestly kind of feels like a stock setup, which is exactly what I wanted, because this car honestly is still just a daily. So I want it to look good, I want it to perform well, but at the end of the day, I just want it to work. And this kit does that. So if you guys are looking to do the swap, I'm leaving links to pretty much every part that I listed down in the description. You guys can check that all out for yourselves. So if you guys have any questions or want me to talk about anything else, just let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a good quarantine, everybody. I'll see you guys next time.